Have you got a copy of every version that's been printed of your books?
I've actually donated them to the Louis archives, just because, every time you publish a book, the publishers send you about 6 or 10 copies, and my bookshelves are groaning. Anybody who comes to my house, I sort of give them books to take away, because there simply are too many of them. You can imagine with 70 books, and every time there's a new edition, you get sent new copies, which is lovely. I really appreciate that. But it's just like, where do I put them? So if you come and visit me, I'll give you a book.
Good morning, Mrs. Scott. In your book, Old Pig, what inspired you to write about death?
Well, actually, and this, sounds sad, but it's not really. But my mother, when she got very sick, and what she did before she died is she went and she returned her library books, and she paid off all her bills, and she did all those things to really get ready, I suppose. And it was only after she had died, and I started writing this story, and it sounds terrible to call your mother an old pig, but I meant it really fondly. It was just, it was a story about her and what she had done. And Ron Brooks, again, is the illustrator for that. And you can see from a copy of Old Pig, it's very different, again, from his style from Fox. He adapts it, his style each time to suit the story.
What advice would you give to young children, and why are most of your books animal-based?
Be nice to your parents. Well, lots of writing, but lots of reading and listening to stories. And the great thing about the Premier's Challenge is that you get exposed to a lot of different books. And if you can read, you can actually do anything else you want to in your life. You have to be able to read and write. And the great thing about reading is that you get the enjoyment of it. It's a real pleasure. It's also something that if you're a bit bored, you need never be bored or lonely. Well, because, for example, let's take Kiss Kiss, which is about a hippo who goes off into the jungle but forgets to say goodbye to his mother. And then he remembers and he comes back again. Now, if this was illustrated with people, it'd be very hard to have a baby going off into the jungle on its own. But with animals, you can do things that humans actually can't do. Sometimes the stories just lend themselves to animals being the characters, although the animals are really people, because they have the same emotions in my stories, and they can talk and things like that. It's simply a way, the best way, I think, of trying to tell the story is, do you have animals in the pictures or do you have people?
Which picture from Rosie and Tortoise do you have hanging near your desk?
Near my desk, it's I do have a painting from Rosie and Tortoise, and that's one of the paintings Ron Brooks did for the book. And one of the nice things about being an author is that sometimes the illustrators will give you a picture from the book, and that's one from Rosie and Tortoise. I've also got a picture that Ron Brooks gave me from Fox, and it's actually the picture that's not in the book. You might have seen this when you were arriving today. So that's the picture that's in the book. And if you zone in, you can see that Magpie is upside down, and she's upside down because she's really so happy. But Ron Brooks had done an earlier picture in which Magpie is the right way up, and that's the picture that he rejected. He thought it wasn't good enough, so he gave it to me. So I'm very lucky to have this beautiful picture in my lounge room, and people walk in and think it's the picture from the book. But of course it's not, because in the book it's turned upside down.
Do you use lots of adjectives in your writing?
Writing picture books is very different from the writing you do at school, because at school what you're doing is learning to use words in different ways, like adjectives and adverbs and so on. In picture books, because the stories are short, you've got to get rid of all the words that aren't essential. And you've got to bear in mind that the pictures are doing half the work or most of the work. So for me, there's often little need to use many adjectives or adverbs or to describe things. because they're all described by the pictures. So the pictures are doing a lot of the work in a picture book, and you're trying to keep it short. But I know for your own writing at school that you need to learn how to use adjectives and adverbs and to use them in the best way, and perhaps not too many. You just need to use as many that are absolutely essential to tell your story.
How long did it take you to write Let the Celebrations Begin?
It's a difficult question about how long it takes to write something, because as I mentioned before, actually, a lot of the writing is done in my head before I sit down and use a pen. So I'm actually writing when I'm walking along the street, or I'm in the bath, or I'm having dinner. I'm thinking about the story. And every now and again I'll think about it, or then do something else, and then I'll sit down and write it. So I don't know how long it took me to write that. It was a difficult story because it's a difficult subject, and I would keep on going back to it. Just like when you're doing your own writing, you're doing drafts, I'm doing drafts over and over again. Sometimes stories, I get an idea, and I actually won't really know how to write it maybe 10 years later, and then it pops back into my head. So if I'm sitting down working at the computer, it can sometimes take hours or days or weeks. And with Let the Celebrations Begin, again, the thinking about it was the longest time, and then the rewriting and rewriting. So I can't actually give you a time thing, because I don't know.
We are going to see the production of Fox, and we're wondering what other books you would like to see turned into a play.
Thank you. Well, I hope you enjoy Fox. It's a very, very interesting production. Something very different from anything you will have seen. So I'd like to know what you think about it afterwards. Some of my other books have been made into plays in different parts of the country. Miss Lily has been put on. The Midnight Gang has been done as puppets. I've never seen it. Miss Lily would make a really, really good musical, because it's got Miss Lily as the crocodile dancing the tango.
I was wondering, if you were going to write another Pocket Dogs, where would it be based on?
Writing sequels is really difficult. It took me about, I don't know how many years to write the second Pocket Dogs book. It was probably about 6 years or something like that. So it is a matter of having a good enough idea, because otherwise readers will say, oh, I like the first book. Second one, not bad. Third one is terrible. So you don't want to write a story just for the sake of writing the story. It has to be a good idea. And also, although I love the characters, unless I get a good enough idea, I probably won't do another one.
In Fox, why did you do the writing the way you did?
That was actually Ron Brooks' idea. He's the illustrator. And he was trying to think of a way that would be slightly different from other books. And his son Henry, who was about 8 at the time, wrote Ron a birthday card. And Henry's writing was fairly, big and uneven and looked wonderful. And Ron thought, well, that's exactly the kind of writing I want to have in Fox. But Ron is right-handed, so what he did is he used his left hand, and he actually wrote it out, and he got the look that he wanted. And then not only did he do this uneven writing, he decided to put it in different places on the page. He told me he was going to do this, and I actually didn't like the idea, and the publisher didn't like the idea either. We just thought, not necessary. And Ron said, fine, and being very cunning, he went away, and he did it. And when it was all done, he showed it to us. And the moment that I saw that handwriting on the page, I thought it was perfect, It just gave a very different feeling to the book. You had the feeling that it could have been, drawn with a stick in the sand or carved into stone. So it really was Ron's brilliant idea.
Margaret, sincerely thank you from behalf of the Premier's Reading Challenge team. Thank you for all those wonderful tips and tricks you've given us. I'm sure our students can now use those when they start to write their narratives. So I might just get them to give you a very big thank you.